I want to start with the premise that young people, when informed and empowered, when they realize that what they do truly makes a difference, can indeed change the world. This is what Jane Goodall said, the naturalist from Africa, who really changed how we deal with animals and how the human-animal interaction takes place. So the goal of my book, the goal of this talk is how to inform young people, inform and empower them that it is in their hands to do what has to be done to save this planet, to manage climate change, to mitigate the impacts of climate change, and have a better future than what is forecast now. Many doomsayers say, the temperature, although the goal is not to raise by 1.5 degrees centigrade, some people are saying we are already reached there. We can go to 3-4 degrees and then major catastrophes will happen. Migration, masses of people will happen and disrupt everything that we normally know. But my premise is that if we as citizens act with diligence, we can change this course. We can have a better future. For example, in the United States, about 2 years ago, the situation looked hopeless. We had a climate change denier as president who wanted to drop out of everything the globe was doing, the world was doing on climate change. But we mobilized the masses, mobilized the voters and said, this has got to change. And we changed it. So we have now a very active president who is working with other countries around the world to make sure that we meet some goals on carbon emission reductions and make sure the US meets its commitments to the Paris Agreement on financing development projects, climate change projects in developing countries. So this is what is possible if we do it. And we, the people, in India, I know of many cases where people have brought petitions to the Indian Supreme Court, challenging the government's actions, challenging the industry's actions, which are polluting our air, water, and land. So again, this citizen action called private interest litigation by lawyers like MC Mehta and many others has changed the scenario of the environment in India. And so this is what my book tries to do, is make young people aware, make every citizen aware that these are the things that are happening, but these are the things that they can do if they understand. They become informed citizens. They can empower themselves, because in a democracy, citizens are empowered and they have to act. If they don't, if they are apathetic, then they will get what they deserve. That is the law of nature. It requires awareness of the importance of clean air, water, and land for personal health and wellness, as well as healthier community. Then take personal responsibility for one's actions towards the environment. It includes how we use water, how we minimize our energy use, how we produce less waste, and minimize our carbon footprint during going around in our transportation. Third action we can take is eat less meat, because that growing fodder for meat takes a lot of land and energy and water. And eat local and support organic farming. Be active in community affairs and stop the destruction of our lakes, green spaces. And I'll tell you a couple of stories during the discussion. Plant a tree and talk to citizen groups. Democracy needs constant vigilance to take part in civil society, join organizations like DNA Live, WOW Action Forums, to really voice your, learn from others and take action. And then, so to take these actions, how do we go about it? It sounds great, but how can we do it? So here is what the book says. And that's what we put in. This represents about 100 years of experience of 3 authors, 2 school teachers, 1 in New York City, one from Chicago, and myself being about 44 years of experience in doing environmental projects around the world, India and US. Next slide, please. So change is an existence threat to humans and plants. It has resulted in extreme weather events. And we are baking in 45 to 50 degree weather, different parts of India. And when I was growing up in the 60s, and when I left India in mid-70s, 1970, things were not as bad. Now it's so hot. People are telling me, Raj, can't bear this heat. And that reduces the productivity of people. And everything, availability of water, and the vulnerable communities get severely impacted. The loss of life and property has been demonstrated over the last, 20 years. So we wrote this book to make school and college students aware and what actions they can take before it is too late. Next slide. Yeah. So the data collected from the 60s has clearly demonstrated the increase of carbon dioxide emissions. One, Professor Keeling at Scripps Institute of Oceanography in La Jolla, California, he has been measuring this since 1959, and he has dramatically shown how we went from 310 ppm in 1960 to 420 parts per million of carbon dioxide in 2022. And it shows what efforts are being done. The Paris climate change, what that tried to do, what are the things that happen in Scotland. So people are getting together and technologies are being developed. And we have to really utilize all this to the benefit of all. Next slide, please. So what is India doing so far? Now, Prime Minister Modi came to Glasgow and he made some bold commitments. He said, India will produce 500 gigawatts of clean energy by 2030. This needs young engineers, young social scientists, young entrepreneurs to take over, to get this, to reach this goal. 50% of total energy will be green energy, from solar, wind, biofuels. Reduction of 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide by 2030. These are ambitious goals, but can be done if the citizens participate. Reduce carbon emissions by 45% in the intensity. Net zero emissions by 2070. President Biden has said it'll be 2035, but realistically it's 2050, but 2070 India set a goal. So the book makes this case that these goals cannot be accomplished by government alone, but citizens are needed to take part and do this. Next slide, please. So what are our natural resources we have to protect? Water, forests, mineral resources, air quality, and we have to conserve these things. So efforts are being made all over India to conserve water, but integrated water management is needed. Water means it includes wastewater, it includes the water we use for agriculture, industry, everything. So we have to look at it as a resource, not wastewater. I just dump it, it pollutes our good fresh water, and then we just end up hurting ourselves. We cannot do that. We have to manage our solid waste. So we have to really recycle all these resources which God has given us in plenty if we use it properly. Next slide. We talk about energy in our book and how coal, oil, and gas are responsible for 69% of the energy produced in India. Nuclear, hydroelectric, and renewables are only 31%. India has had the foresight to start the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy Resources many years ago. They have come up with a lot of technologies, but industry has to take, entrepreneurs have to take it up and make it into real projects which produce energy, which benefit themselves and the community. So private sector and citizens have to play a leading role in this effort. biofuels and biogas have to be really maximized. We have lots and lots of biomass from the agriculture waste in India. We have to utilize it properly. We can conserve energy and emphasize energy efficiency in our homes and buildings. This is the cheapest way to get it done. Biodiversity and ecosystems. We dwell a lot on, I've made it totally India focused with two authors from Bangalore area, from Karnataka, writing the chapters on biodiversity and ecosystems. The variety of ecosystems we have available all over India, and the amount of the biodiversity we have in the Western Ghats, in the Himalayan region are amazing. We just have to preserve them and enhance them. So this is something which many students are not aware of, because I looked at students' textbooks, students studying in Delhi, and didn't see much of this covered. Their textbooks on science or environment or subjects related to social studies, things like that. So that we cover. Next one. Natural hazardous management. We've been very lax in this, and when 2004 the tsunami hit India in a big way, several villages just wiped off the map. People just, dead and destroyed property. India woke up to really strengthen natural hazards and disaster management. So we mentioned about all these disasters that are happening in India and around the world, and how with proper planning and mitigation efforts, we can be ready for these things and manage them properly without the current damage to property and life that's happening. Next one. Environmental crisis and social response. The crisis is happening and people are responding, but not fast enough. When I used to come to Delhi in the mid-90s and early 2000, first when I started coming in 94, 95, whenever I stepped out, I had to take a handkerchief to cover my nose and mouth whenever I stepped out. And after the end of the day, after meetings around town, I would come back and see my shirt collar was totally black. And then due to the leadership of a chief minister called Sheila Dikshit, she forced all public transportation in the city to change from diesel and petrol to compressed natural gas. There was a lot of opposition. The Indian Supreme Court had to get involved. And finally, with leaders like Sheila Dikshit, that got done. And many cities around the country are now converting to CNG. But as soon as we do that, more people start driving, more people crowd the roads, and we are acting irresponsibly. When I was in Bangalore in 2008, I suffered through a 2-hour traffic jam, sitting in my car with the car exhaust running. This is unacceptable. In 1970, when I was in Hyderabad, I used to go with my bike everywhere without any problems, healthy as a horse, because there's not that much air pollution. But now, 2008, I saw 2019 in Bangalore, traffic jams and the air pollution, air quality is decreasing. We citizens can be responsible in using public transport, using the metro, and less use of our cars. Be thoughtful in every trip you take. These are things which citizens can do. Water pollution, we're polluting our lakes, which is not sustainable. We are using so much fertilizer in our agriculture that's runoff is polluting our water bodies. Land pollution is happening. We are not disposing of solid and hazardous waste properly. So our book says what can be done, what is being done. Thank you. Next one. And how do we conserve the wonderful things nature gave us, that God gave us, endowed us with, which we are ruining and using in such great quantities that it is hurting the whole community. So what are the role of courts? What are the courts doing in India? What are the role of NGOs and civil society organizations? Because unless you know all these things, you cannot, you say I'm crippled, I can't do. As an individual, what can I do? Join a civil society organization that's doing amazing work and get involved. And NGOs are doing great work. So citizen involvement is crucial. And how do the courts, unless the citizen brings a petition, courts do not act. Next one. There's several approaches to manage climate change, increasing energy efficiency. We have artificial intelligence to really make energy efficiency easy and practical. We can use renewable energy. That is, technologies are developing faster and faster, and the costs are reducing. We have to develop policies, local, state, and central government levels to implement laws and create this public awareness. Resource conservation is very, very important. And there are so many new technologies which are not being still used widely. Biochar is a wonderful product which can be used to control the carbon emissions. Water treatment, recycling plastic, and other waste streams. Next one. And we say this is not pie in the sky, it is being done. It has been done. We talk about the Chipko movement in India, started by women in the Uttarakhand region in 1970 to prevent the removal of forests by industry that was indiscriminately logging and removing trees from beautiful area of Uttarakhand. So they took action. They are the pioneers. The first environmental movement in India started by women. It was how we can do it. The Fukushima nuclear disaster we present in great detail, because many people think, oh, if we can't use coal, let's go to the nuclear. Nuclear is very expensive, and disasters like this really, really ruin the planet for many, many decades. Oil spills, we talk about that. Our fossil fuels, we want to transport fuel from one place which has plenty to others. And while producing it, we spill a lot, and that is really harming us. And I say the future is not somewhere in the distant 20, 30, 50, or 70, but right now we can develop economic policies. We can create incentives for more renewable energy generation and make sure the costs of treating water are properly recovered, and so that these facilities are properly maintained and operated. Then deploy the technologies. We have these technologies, but we should make sure that industry and government is doing this. And social change, behavioral change is a very slow process, as Hari is finding out in his WOW action forums. But awareness programs or civic groups, it can be done. And economic policies are done. So this, my conclusion is, it's a positive message to all citizens. We do not have to accept global warming as it is happening. We see horrible pictures in our TV of polar bears struggling because the sea ice is melting so fast. And young people are doing it, taking action. So why not all of us join them for a better future? We have the tools to meet these goals. We have to do it. We just have to be aware of them and use them. And behavioral change starts with every citizen working from their own home, and with students at every level, every school level, college level, saying, it is our responsibility. God has given us a great environment. Let us preserve it for ourselves and for the future. And without that, we will be suffering so much healthcare costs. We will suffer, our productivity will reduce, and we will suffer now and ruin the planet for the future. So let's take action now. That's the theme of the book. You can learn a lot, and what we did was each chapter has lots of exercises for people to get involved, write reports for themselves, and study, report, and get cognizant and share these things with others in their family, with friends. That is how we're going to all change the whole culture of apathy to a culture of activism and taking action. So now I would like to welcome a lot of discussion, questions, what impediments you face in your local climate to take these actions and how we can overcome them. Thank you.